All right, so today is the last day. So thanks everybody that was able to participate and be here. So I'm excited about getting into this last little bit, and we're going to be just focusing on a few things about how we can start creating positive change. So taking what we've already learned and really creating some impact around that. So let me get my slide here. Okay, so yesterday we ended with trying to identify and come to at least picking out one goal that we might have. It could be financial, to stay on track with the topic, but it could be anything. And I believe most of you had that, we all had that set yesterday. And so what we want to do once we have that goal is identify a doubt or limiting belief that we may have about that goal. And I apologize, I'm going to pull up my chat here. I know there's a different way to do it here, but let me see if I can figure out how to get it back. Oops. I like to put it on my other screen, so it's over here. Okay, there we go. Okay, so if you have an idea of a doubt or some type of belief or limiting thought that you might have about reaching that particular goal, if you want to take a moment and either ponder what that might be, write it down either for yourself to be aware of, or if you want to just let me know in the chat if something comes to mind, you don't have to share what it is, but if you can identify at least one thing that comes up for you. Okay, so yeah, there's something that comes up there. Makes sense. That's something that's pretty normal. So I'd like for you to now ask yourself, when you think about that belief, what would you like to believe instead? Usually that's the easier thing to come to mind. So if you have something that you would like to believe instead, let me know if that comes up for you. Yeah, so abundance comes up. Okay, good. So, what specifically would you like to believe about abundance? And apologies if this is something that you already have outlined somewhere, either internally or on a piece of paper, but do you have something specific about what you would like to believe in regards to abundance? Okay, financial abundance. Yeah, that makes sense. So, what can be helpful in helping us move into the next step and cementing in that goal is there a very specific belief? Let's say if you have a belief that says maybe I'm not smart enough. That's just something I hear a lot, and I'm just using that as a generic example. So what I'm not smart enough to, let's say, increase my um, maybe increase my salary by 10,000 a year. So just as an example. So what would you like to believe instead could look like just the opposite or something similar to that? I believe that I am smart enough to increase my salary by $10,000 a year or whatever that might look like. So do you have a way to specifically outline what something that maybe is measurable or specific to your particular goal, that you could even narrow it down when you think about financial abundance or abundance in general. What specifically would you want to believe? Believe that you're worthy of abundance, or believe that whatever you have, whatever skill it is that you need to execute something. So if there's something that comes to mind about you and what you think you're capable of in achieving financial abundance, identifying whatever that belief is that we have about ourselves and what might be keeping us from doing that or from having that can be really key and helpful for moving past that. So I'm kind of digging a little bit further if you have something a little bit more specific on financial abundance that might come up for you. And again, you don't have to share specifics, but if you have something that comes up that can really allow your brain to focus on something in more detail or a specific belief, that can really be helpful. Let me know if you have something that comes up. Okay, no worries. Drawing a blank, that's okay. Yeah, that's happened to me before. So if you want to maybe take some time later if it's something you're up for doing, if you want to journal on it or just take some time whenever you feel like you're able to dig in and get a little bit more in touch with your whatever thoughts might be going on for you, ask yourself, what would you like to believe instead of that limitation? And if you can narrow the focus and give your brain some very specific direction on what you'd like to achieve, it gives it some instruction on what do you want me to do? Because our unconscious mind is very childlike in the way where it really wants to help us. It really wants us to reach whatever goal and be a support system. And so it's looking for direction and instruction. And so the more clarity that you can give it, the easier it is for it to actually help you reach that and align your surroundings, align your belief system, and bringing in resources that you might need to be able to reach that. So that can be something that is helpful to do on the side when we have some quiet and alone time as well. Okay. So when you think about if you can identify a very specific belief that or something that you would like to believe instead of the limitation that you have, the next step would be to going into, we've talked a lot about evidence, and we can gain evidence to build negative beliefs or limiting beliefs, and we can also gather evidence and data to support positive beliefs. So when you think about what do I want to believe instead, you're giving your brain what your goal is, what you would like to focus on, and then there's this process that can take minutes, hours, days, weeks. It depends. Like I mentioned a couple days ago with Julia, she was able to build evidence around her situation and her limitation in less than a week. So whenever we came back and reconvened a week later, she was able to report back that she had broken that belief. So it's something that can happen really quickly if you have the evidence and you believe internally that this is possible and that you have something substantial that is convincing that can demonstrate, yes, this is actually a valid belief. I am worthy and I have the right to believe this is true. So once you have that identified, what you would like to have, what would you like to believe instead, you don't excuse me, I got something stuck in my throat. You don't always have to specifically know when you ask the question what evidence or intentionally start consciously looking for all of the evidence, but specifically giving your brain instruction that this is what I would like to have, and I'm open to the possibility, and I'm willing to be curious and receiving the evidence that is out there that can support my belief system. So, can we find that evidence in other people? A lot of times we can use other people as our examples, as evidence that something specific is possible. Or we can find it in scientific data sometimes, or either from our past selves. We can look back even 10 or 20 years ago and say, hey, I remember I used to be really good at this, and something happened where I don't really feel like I'm quite in the same place before. So sometimes going back and looking at what did I do? How do I step back into that skill set and that confidence in this particular area that I know I already have? So going back and reflecting on even our past can help build evidence that yes, I still have that toolkit. I still have that capability that I had before. It didn't leave me. I still have access to it. So gaining that evidence. And I'll just use a quick example that I had a really big limiting belief around money and what money represented. Yesterday, we talked about money is or wealth is. I had this belief around my definition of money. And it took me some time to actually uncover because it was under some layers. I was able to identify what that was, and then I was able to break that belief very quickly by gaining evidence from my surroundings. So just things I heard in the media, things I heard from my surroundings and from other rich people I hear talking and just from their daily lives. I was able to just pick up on a tiny little bit of information that was enough for me to validate that this belief is no longer true. So it can really actually be that simple of a process. So, something that I think is really underrated and really oversimplified in a lot of ways is abundance is rooted in gratitude. And this was something that I was taught my entire life to be thankful and to have an attitude of gratitude. But it was just kind of like a surface level thought process. And once I went through the whole exercise of what I did with you guys, I did in day one and one, two, and three, I did that on in my own life. I went and looked through all of my finances, through my tracking, and looking at my behaviors and patterns and where I could make change. And then suddenly I realized that there was my attitude of lack was coming from this shortage of gratitude. And so I was able to use the financial tracking and all of those things that we worked through the last few days to help me understand that yes, I can make more money and I can and do more and that way, but having the gratitude for what I already have and how much money I have and how much leverage and power that can have towards my financial future. I really underestimated that. And so going back through what we did really helped me uh, really shift that perspective and noticing that, just like in that slide I showed, $100 a month can go a long way. So if we don't have $100 a month, what can we do? Or maybe we want it, to start out with less than $100 a month or more than that. So just a little bit of changes over time. We don't have to look for drastic improvements. But just starting out with small steps can help our brain to start trusting the process, to start seeing that improvement and building that evidence like, hey, this is actually possible. I can do this. And it builds that momentum and it just snowballs over time. So this doesn't have really a whole lot to do with mindset per se, but I will say that I am a big advocate for putting some protections in place. This might be something that you've already done or maybe already aware of, but I am very big on security and trying to protect assets and our accounts and all of those things So having certain password protections in place, and also there was a breach, a security breach, where a lot of people's identities and social security numbers are public access now. It's very easy for people to get personal information because of a data breach. And so it's one thing that you can do is going into your credit bureaus, the Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion, you can actually set up credit freezes on your credit history for free. And so this is one way of protecting your particular identity, protecting your assets, and going through some type of legal battle, which I've actually heard some pretty crazy stories of people that have a lot of assets and they've had people try to apply for mortgages and other things in their name. So this is a real problem. So I do have that set up for myself. The other thing that you can also do is ID theft protection. So there's password managers and different companies out there. I'm not going to recommend one specific company, but you can do your research and see what is best for you. And those are typically a paid service, but this is just another tool that you can use. And I will say that the part that I would say is tied to the mindset is how much we are willing to kind of take our head out of the sand and look at what reality is and what face we may be facing. I did have a friend where I really strongly suggested that they increase their password strength on all of their financial things, their financial accounts, their bank accounts and things, because I had become aware in conversation that they had an extremely weak password. And because it was a friend and I was concerned about their financial status in that way, I recommended that they immediately upgrade their passwords and put some additional protection in place. And they kind of neglected to do that and didn't really see the importance at that point in time. And then they were compromised, their accounts were compromised. So this is really something that I take very seriously personally. And it's something that I wanted to convey in this because I think it's just something that needs to be talked about. It's not always something that we're aware of. And then lastly, I want to end with this goal setting activity. So there is a lot of different ways that we can train the brain to help us reach our goals. We can do different techniques and tactics on getting to the bottom of beliefs and limitations that we have or patterns and behaviors. How do we break free from that? But this is one thing that we can do. And I did this for a big goal that I wanted to achieve last year. And it really made a huge difference for me and helping me see the possibility and train my brain to move forward towards this goal. And I will say that I personally leverage prayer a lot. I use prayer in my daily life. And so I do a lot of this work in conjunction with my prayer and personal faith and beliefs. So this is something that I'll walk you through if you want to do this on your own. It's something super simple, but very, very powerful. So what I would like you to do, going back to what we talked about, the goal. If you have one specific goal, I believe one of the goals yesterday in the chat was talking about paying off a mortgage. So that is a perfect example. There are lots of other different examples that we can use for that. But this is just going to be a process of imagination where we're going to leverage our imagination and our unconscious mind and training our brain. So this is something that I love to do with people, and I do personally. I like to close my eyes and do it that way. And it's really a visual exercise to help build some confidence towards our goal. So what I want you to do is if you're comfortable closing your eyes, is when you think about this goal, I'm going to open my eyes because it's a little bit hard for me to do it whenever I'm talking. If you have a particular goal that you want to achieve and you think about what is it going to look like? What evidence are you going to have that that goal is done? For instance, if your goal is paying off your house, are you going to know it's paid off when you write the last check? Or when you log into your account and you see that the balance is zero? Or is it when you get the deed in the mail? Any of those things, whatever works for you, that would really have a big impact on validating, yes, I know that I achieved my goal, and it really sinks in. If you can put maybe some identity on what that one thing would be that would validate for you individually how you would know that that goal is achieved. And then what I would like you to do is just imagine that you're in the picture in this little mini video of this moment where you notice whatever that thing is that gives you proof. And imagine the emotions that come up for you, that that positive state that you enter in when you see that. And so when you have that image, there's going to be sounds maybe you hear, maybe somebody's clapping, or maybe you're jumping up and down with excitement, whatever that may be. And then what I would like you to do is take that moment and just make it into a still frame, into some type of picture where you can kind of see it, like you're kind of pulling it out of your imagination so you can see that picture in front of you. And it's got all the emotion, the sounds, and everything tied into this piece of evidence that you have that you know this goal is achieved. You've checked the box. And then there's this process where you can just imagine yourself holding this picture, and you just imagine yourself, you have this imaginary timeline, you have your past and your future, and imagine yourself just floating up into the sky above your timeline, and you're holding on to this picture of you accomplishing this goal, and you just float just slowly into your future to wherever it is that's perfect for you in accomplishing this goal, whatever's the perfect time, and just float over your timeline and just allow that picture to float down below you and just travel down exactly where it needs to go into your timeline, and notice that it floats down into your future exactly where it needs to be. And then I want you to notice that all of the events leading up to that event align themselves in the way that they're meant to be, in just a perfect way to allow you to achieve your goal and have the resources to do whatever it is that you need to do at that moment. And whenever you're ready, just slowly flow back on your timeline, float back on your timeline to the present moment. Just float back down into the present. And when you're back into the room, just open up your eyes and just come back in. And that's one way that I love to one of the tools I love to use for helping me set goals and helping me stay focused and putting that excitement into the future. So if you noticed, if you were able to do that and you noticed anything that came up for you, did you notice any emotions or any shift in motivation or anything internally that came up when you did that? Any observations, any questions that you might have? Relief that the stressor way gone for good. So you had a positive experience with that. Yeah, I did too. And it was really amazing for me because my particular goal was extremely outside of my comfort zone. And I had to align a lot of different things. And it wasn't just reliant on me achieving my goal, it was relying on other people in my environment to become aligned and supportive of me actually achieving that goal. And so I had to have some conversations that I wasn't really excited about having originally. And after I did this exercise, it brought for me a lot of peace and confidence that I was really just putting this story and pressure on myself. And whenever I had the conversations with people about the things I really needed from them in order for me to achieve this goal, the conversations went so easily. I had no resistance, and it was just honestly an incredible experience for me. And that really helped me. It was just a very simple exercise, but the process of using your imagination is very, very powerful. We use imagination to create negative experiences. We can use our imagination to improve and install and create positive experiences as well. So that's one that I really love in particular. So that's all I have for this workshop. If you have any questions or you'd like to get in contact with me, I believe you all have my contact info. You're more than welcome to reach out anytime. I really appreciate the support and having you all participate in being here. So let me stop sharing my screen here. And if anybody has any questions, you're welcome to come on. Let's see here.